You've arrived in a space where your heart can rest and your spirit can breathe. Let me carry your worries while I tell you a story filled with light. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the pediatric ward of St. Mary's Hospital. Nurse Bethany Richards pulled her blonde hair back into a tired ponytail. Her blue scrubs wrinkled from a 12-hour shift that had stretched into 14 hours. She paused outside room 312. Through the small window, she could see a little girl lying still in a hospital bed. Her dark hair spread across the white pillow. The child's floral hospital gown looked too big for her small frame, and 4 drips stood sentinel beside her bed, its steady rhythm the only sound in the quiet room. Bethany checked her watch. 9:30 p.m. The night shift would arrive soon, but something about this particular patient had kept her here longer than usual. The girl had been admitted 3 days ago with severe pneumonia, and despite all their efforts, she remained listless and withdrawn. What troubled Bethany most was the loneliness. No visitors had come. No family members sat beside the bed reading stories or bringing flowers. The admission papers listed only a father as emergency contact, but he had never appeared. The social worker, Mrs. Henderson, had left multiple messages with no response. Bethany entered the room quietly. The girl's eyes were open, staring at the ceiling with an expression too mature for her 6 years. "Hey there, sweetie." Bethany's voice was gentle. "How are you feeling tonight?" The girl turned her head slightly. "My chest hurts." "I know it does. The medicine will help soon." Bethany sat on the edge of the bed. "What's your name again? I want to make sure I'm saying it right." "Sophia Chin Morrison." The words came out in a whisper. "That's a beautiful name. Are you feeling lonely, Sophia?" The child's lower lip trembled. She nodded. Bethany's heart ached. She had been a pediatric nurse for 8 years, and she had learned to maintain professional boundaries. But something about this little girl reminded her of herself at that age. The same dark hair, the same quiet sadness, the same way of looking at the world as if it might disappoint her at any moment. "I have an idea." Bethany stood up. "I'll be right back." She walked to the nurse's station where her personal belongings sat in a small cubby. Her fingers found the worn fabric of something she had carried with her for 15 years. A small doll with auburn hair and a faded blue dress. The doll had been her only companion during her own childhood in foster care, passed from one temporary home to another. Bethany had never been adopted. At 18, she had aged out of the system with nothing but this doll and a determination to make something of herself. She had worked 2 jobs to pay for nursing school, driven by a promise she had made to herself. She would spend her life taking care of children who needed someone to care about them. The doll had been her secret comfort through nursing school, through her first job, through the lonely nights in her small apartment. She had planned to give it to her own daughter someday, but at 32, she was still single, still struggling to pay off student loans on a nurse's salary. Back in room 312, Sophia was staring at the ceiling again. "I brought you something special." Bethany sat down and held out the doll. "This is Rosie. She's been with me for a very long time." Sophia's eyes widened. Her small hands reached out tentatively. "She's beautiful," Sophia whispered. "She likes to be hugged," Bethany said, "and she's an excellent listener. Sometimes when I was scared or lonely, I would tell her all my worries, and somehow I felt better." Sophia clutched the doll to her chest. For the first time since her admission, she smiled. "Can I keep her tonight?" Bethany felt a tightness in her throat. "Yes, sweetheart. She's yours now." The next morning brought chaos. Bethany arrived for her shift to find the hospital administrator, Dr. William Hayes, standing in the hallway with a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit. The man's dark hair was disheveled, and his eyes held a mixture of panic and exhaustion. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Hayes was saying, "I assure you, your daughter has received the best possible care." Bethany recognized the name immediately. Morrison, as in Morrison Technologies, the software company whose headquarters dominated the downtown skyline. This was Alexander Morrison, the CEO whose face appeared regularly in business magazines. "I want to see her now," Morrison said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Of course. Right this way." They walked toward room 312, and Bethany followed at a distance. Through the doorway, she could see Sophia sitting up in bed, talking animatedly to the doll. Color had returned to her cheeks overnight. Morrison stopped in the doorway. His entire demeanor changed when he saw his daughter. The corporate executive facade crumbled, revealing a father who had been terrified of losing his child. "Daddy." Sophia's face lit up. Morrison rushed to her bedside, gathering her carefully in his arms. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I wasn't here." "Where were you?" Sophia asked, but without accusation. Just curiosity. "I was in Japan. For work. My phone didn't work there, and I didn't get the messages until this morning. I flew back as soon as I could." Bethany watched this reunion with mixed emotions. Relief that Sophia had family who cared about her. Confusion about why it had taken 3 days for him to appear. And something else she couldn't quite name. "Look what the nice nurse gave me," Sophia said, holding up the doll. "Her name is Rosie." Morrison's eyes found Bethany in the doorway. "Thank you," he said simply. Over the next 2 days, as Sophia recovered, Bethany learned more about the Morrison family. Alexander was a widower. His wife had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him to raise Sophia alone. He had thrown himself into work as a way to cope with grief, often traveling for weeks at a time while Sophia stayed with a series of nannies. This business trip to Japan had been his longest absence yet. He had been negotiating a deal that would secure his company's future, but he had been so focused on work that he had failed to update his international phone plan. When Sophia's nanny, Mrs. Chun, had tried to reach him about the illness, her calls had gone straight to voicemail. "I never thought something like this would happen," he confided to Bethany on the second day. "She's never been seriously sick before. Mrs. Chun is wonderful, but she's elderly." When Sophia's fever spiked, she panicked and brought her straight to the hospital. "She's been here every day, but she doesn't speak much English," and she was afraid to make decisions without reaching me first. Bethany realized she had misjudged the situation. The absence of family hadn't been neglect, but a series of unfortunate circumstances. Mrs. Chun, the Chinese nanny, had been sitting in the waiting room during visiting hours, too uncertain about hospital protocols to come to the room. "She's been waiting downstairs," Morrison explained. "She thought she needed special permission to visit. No one told her she could just come up." The revelation made Bethany feel foolish. She had assumed the worst about this family, when the truth was more complicated and heartbreaking. On Sophia's last day in the hospital, Morrison approached Bethany during her lunch break. She was sitting in the small staff kitchen, eating a sandwich and reading a medical journal. "May I sit down?" he asked. She nodded, suddenly self-conscious about her appearance. Her scrubs were clean but faded, and she had pulled her hair back in a simple bun. "I wanted to thank you properly," Morrison said. "Not just for medical care, but for the kindness. Sophia hasn't stopped talking about you and the doll." "She's a special little girl," Bethany replied. "Any nurse would have done the same." "I don't think that's true." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something? Why did you give her the doll? It looked like it meant a lot to you." Bethany hesitated. She had never told anyone about her childhood, about the foster homes and the loneliness. But something in Morrison's eyes made her feel safe to speak. "I grew up in foster care," she said quietly. "That doll was the only constant thing in my life. I know what it feels like to be alone and scared in a place where everything is unfamiliar." Morrison listened without interruption as she told him about her childhood, about working her way through nursing school, about choosing pediatrics because she wanted to be the person she had needed when she was young. "I've been so focused on providing for Sophia financially that I forgot she needed me emotionally," Morrison admitted. "When I saw her with that doll, talking to it like it was her best friend, I realized how lonely she must be." "She's not lonely anymore," Bethany said. "You're here now. But I have to travel for work. The company can be managed by other people," Bethany finished. "I'm not trying to tell you how to run your life, Mr. Morrison, but I've seen a lot of children in this hospital. The ones who recover fastest are the ones who know they're loved and wanted." Morrison was quiet for a long time. "You're right," he said finally. "I've been using work as a way to avoid dealing with my grief. But I'm not the only one who lost someone. Sophia lost her mother too, and then I essentially abandoned her as well. 3 weeks later, Bethany was surprised to receive a phone call at the hospital. It was Morrison's assistant, asking if she would be available for a meeting that afternoon. When she arrived at the Morrison Technologies building, she was escorted to the top floor. The executive offices were impressive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Morrison's office was large and surprisingly personal, with photographs of Sophia covering one wall. "Thank you for coming," Morrison said, standing up from behind his desk. "Please sit down." Bethany took a seat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. She was wearing her best dress, a simple navy blue outfit she had bought for a wedding years ago. "I have a proposition for you," Morrison said. "I've been thinking about what you said about being present for Sophia. I've decided to step back from day-to-day operations and focus on being a father. But I still need to travel occasionally for board meetings and major negotiations." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I'd like to offer you a position as Sophia's private nurse and companion. You would live in our home, travel with us when necessary, and be there for her medical needs and emotional support. The salary would be significantly more than what you're making at the hospital." Bethany was stunned. "Mr. Morrison, I don't know what to say. I know it's a big change, but Sophia asks about you every day. She's been carrying that doll everywhere, and she tells everyone about the kind nurse who gave it to her. I think you two have a special connection." Bethany thought about her small apartment, her struggles to pay rent, her loneliness. She thought about Sophia's bright smile and the way the little girl had hugged the doll. "I'd like to meet with Sophia first," she said, "to make sure she's comfortable with the arrangement. Of course, she's at home with Mrs. Chun. Would you like to come for dinner tonight?" That evening, Bethany found herself in a world she had never imagined. The Morrison house was a Tudor-style mansion in an exclusive neighborhood, with manicured gardens and a circular driveway. But inside, it felt more like a home than a showplace. Sophia met her at the door, still carrying the doll. She was wearing jeans and a pink sweater, her hair in pigtails. "Bethany!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around the nurse's waist. "Daddy said you might come live with us. Would you like that?" Bethany asked, kneeling down to Sophia's eye level. "Yes, then I could see you every day, and you could help me take care of Rosie." During dinner, Bethany met Mrs. Chun, who had been with the family since Sophia's birth. The elderly woman's English was limited, but her love for Sophia was evident in every gesture. She had been carrying enormous guilt about not being able to communicate effectively with the hospital staff. "Mrs. Chun will continue help with cooking and household management," Morrison explained. "But I want someone with medical training to be Sophia's primary caregiver." After dinner, Sophia showed Bethany her room, which was decorated in soft pastels with a canopy bed and walls lined with bookshelves. The doll sat in a place of honor on the nightstand. "She sleeps with me every night," Sophia said. "She keeps the bad dreams away." "What kind of bad dreams?" Bethany asked gently. "About Mommy. Sometimes I dream that she's calling for me, but I can't find her." Sophia's voice grew small. "Daddy says the dreams will stop someday, but they haven't yet." Bethany sat on the edge of the bed. "It's okay to miss your mommy. Love doesn't go away just because someone isn't here anymore. Is that why you kept Rosie for so long? Because you loved her?" "Yes, sweetheart. And now I'm sharing that love with you." Bethany accepted the position the next day. Moving into Morrison House felt like stepping into a different life. Her own belongings looked small and shabby in the elegant guest room that had been prepared for her, but Sophia's enthusiasm made up for any discomfort. The first few weeks were an adjustment for everyone. Morrison was learning to work from home more often, taking meetings via video conference and delegating responsibilities he had never trusted to others. Sophia was adjusting to having consistent care and attention, and Bethany was learning to navigate the complex dynamics of a grieving family. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Sophia had been unusually quiet, and Bethany found her in the living room, staring at a framed photograph of her mother. "She was pretty," Bethany said, sitting beside her on the couch. I'm starting to forget what her voice sounded like, Sophia whispered. Would you like to tell me about her? For the next hour, Sophia shared memories of her mother, how she used to sing lullabies in both English and Chinese, how she made the best chocolate chip cookies, how she always smelled like lavender perfume. Daddy doesn't like to talk about her, Sophia said. I think it makes him too sad. Sometimes grown-ups need time to heal, Bethany explained. But that doesn't mean we can't remember her and talk about her. From that day forward, Bethany made a point to encourage Sophia to share memories of her mother. She helped her create a scrapbook with photographs and stories. She learned to sing one of the Chinese lullabies that Sophia's mother had taught her. Morrison noticed a change in his daughter. She was more open, more willing to express her emotions, and slowly, he began to join their conversations about his late wife. I was afraid that talking about her would make the grief worse, he admitted to Bethany one evening after Sophia had gone to bed. But I see now that hiding from it was hurting Sophia more than helping her. Grief isn't something you get over, Bethany said. It's something you learn to carry. 6 months into her new position, Bethany realized that she had found something she had never expected. A family, not just as an employee, but as someone who belonged somewhere. Morrison treated her with respect and kindness, including her in family decisions and valuing her opinions. Sophia had become like a daughter to her. The turning point came during Sophia's 7th birthday party. Morrison had invited several of Sophia's classmates, and the house was filled with laughter and celebration. Bethany had spent weeks planning the party, coordinating with Mrs. Chun to prepare Sophia's favorite foods and decorating the backyard with fairy lights and balloons. As Sophia opened her presents, she held up each gift to show Bethany, seeking her approval and sharing her excitement. When she reached the last gift, a small wrapped box from her father, her eyes widened. Inside was a delicate necklace with a heart-shaped locket. When Sophia opened it, she found a tiny photograph of her mother on one side and a picture of herself with Bethany on the other. So you can keep the people you love close to your heart, Morrison said, his voice thick with emotion. Sophia threw her arms around her father, then turned to hug Bethany. You're both in my heart, she said. Later that evening, after the guests had gone home and Sophia was asleep, Bethany and Morrison sat on the back porch. The fairy lights were still twinkling in the trees, and the air was warm with the promise of summer. I have something to tell you, Morrison said. I've been offered a position that will require us to relocate to Seattle. The company is expanding, and they want to oversee the West Coast operations. Bethany's heart sank. That's a wonderful opportunity. I'm not sure I want to take it. Sophia is settled here. She has friends, a school she loves, and she has you. If it's the right move for your career, you should consider it. Morrison was quiet for a moment. What if I asked you to come with us? To Seattle? As Sophia's nurse? As part of our family? Morrison turned to face her. I know this might seem sudden, but over the past few months, I've watched you with Sophia. I've seen how much you care about her, how much she loves you, and I've realized that I care about you too. Not just as an employee, but as a person. Bethany felt her heart racing. Alexander, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. About Seattle. About us. That night, Bethany lay awake thinking about the unexpected turn her life had taken. A year ago, she had been a single nurse living paycheck to paycheck in a small apartment. Now she was part of a family with a man who respected her and a child who loved her. She thought about the doll that had started it all. Such a small act of kindness, giving away the one thing that had comforted her through her darkest times. She had given it freely, without expecting anything in return, and it had led to a life she could never have imagined. The next morning, she found Morrison in the kitchen, making coffee before his first meeting of the day. I've been thinking about what you said, she began. And I think Seattle sounds like an adventure, but I have one condition. What's that? I want us to get married not because of convenience or because it makes sense for Sophia, but because we love each other. I won't be a replacement for your wife or just a caregiver for your daughter. I want to be chosen for who I am. Morrison set down his coffee cup and took her hands. I love you, Bethany. I love your kindness, your strength, your dedication to Sophia. I love the way you make our house feel like a home. Will you marry me? Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I will. They were married in a small ceremony in the backyard, surrounded by fairy lights and the people who had become their chosen family. Sophia served as a flower girl, carrying a bouquet of roses and wearing the locket with her mother's photograph. Mrs. Chun wept happy tears as she watched the family she had helped raise find their way to wholeness. As they exchanged vows, Bethany thought about the journey that had brought them together. Two people who had lost so much, who had found each other through the simple act of caring for a child. A little girl who had needed love and had somehow brought them all together. In her wedding dress, Bethany carried a small bouquet of flowers, but tucked inside was the doll that had started it all. Rosie, the faithful companion who had taught her about love and sacrifice, who had been the bridge between her old life and her new one. After the ceremony, as the guests celebrated and Sophia played with her friends, Morrison pulled Bethany aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small wrapped package. Inside was a photograph in a silver frame. It showed Bethany and Sophia in the hospital room, the moment when she had first given her the doll. Someone had captured the scene without her knowing, preserving the instant when everything had changed. "How did you get this?" she asked. "Security cameras," Morrison said with a smile. "I had them pull the footage after Sophia told me about the special nurse who gave her the doll. I wanted to see for myself the moment when you changed our lives." Bethany studied the photograph, remembering that night. She had been so tired, so concerned about a lonely little girl. She had never imagined that one act of kindness would lead to this moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "No, thank you. Thank you for seeing what Sophia needed. Thank you for giving her something precious. Thank you for teaching me how to be a better father. Thank you for becoming part of our family." As the sun set over their new beginning, Bethany realized that sometimes the most important gifts are the ones we give away. In letting go of the doll that had comforted her through her own childhood, she found something infinitely more valuable: a family, a love, and a future filled with possibilities. The doll still sat on Sophia's nightstand, a reminder of the love that had brought them all together. But now it was no longer a symbol of solitude and longing. It had become a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of family, and the beautiful ways that love can multiply when we choose to share it with others. In the years that followed, they would tell the story to their friends, to their family, to anyone who would listen. The story of how a poor nurse's simple act of kindness had changed 3 lives forever. The story of how love, when given freely, has the power to create families, heal hearts, and transform ordinary moments into extraordinary miracles. And in Seattle, in their new home, the doll would continue to watch over them, a silent guardian of the love that had brought them together and the promise of all the beautiful tomorrows yet to come.